Nicholas Smith.
Stand, please. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may be seated.
Sir, will you please state your name and spell it slowly for Madam Reporter?
Nicholas Smith, Nicholas, Smith, Smith.
And Mr. Smith, I'm not looking for your specific physical address, but where do you live?
Here in Kenosha.
And how old are you right now?
23.
Have you ever been adjudicated delinquent in the past?
Yes, I believe.
How many times?
What does that mean? Can you clarify what that means?
Of how many offenses were you adjudged a juvenile delinquent?
One, I believe, as a delinquent.
If I told you it was 2?
It might be.
Okay. Now, are you currently employed, sir?
Yes.
And what kind of work do you do?
I work at a factory.
Right. And if I could, are you familiar with a business called CarSource?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with that business?
I worked for them.
You worked for them?
Yes, I worked for CarSource, and I've known the owners for 10 years.
And who are the owners?
Sam, Sal, their dad, their mom, and their...
And do you remember when you worked for them specifically?
2018 to 2019.
So you worked for them 2018 to 2019, but you've known them for about a decade?
Close to a decade, yes.
And what I want to do, if I can, is direct your attention to August 24th of 2020. Okay?
Okay.
So that would be the day prior to the shootings involving Mr. Rittenhouse.
Yes.
On that day, did you have any contact at all with anybody from CarSource?
Yes, I did.
And who was that contact with?
Sam.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what that contact was?
The night of the 24th, I'd received a phone call from Sam stating that his car doctor was on fire and asked if we could do anything.
Okay, now I'm going to show you. So I'm going to show you, we've heard this at length here, but if I said to you the car doctor has been previously pointed out as this CarSource right here between 59th and 60th, is that fair?
Correct.
Okay, and that is what is commonly known to you as the car doctor.
Correct.
All right, and you had said that Sam had asked you for your assistance?
Me and one other.
Do you know who that was?
One other person?
Yeah.
Yes, that was Justin Hamilton.
And to your knowledge, did Mr. Hamilton, had he worked for CarSource in the past?
For 10 years, yes.
And on the 24th, what were you asked to do?
Sam had asked if we could do anything about the fires. Asked both of us.
And did you?
Yes.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you did?
Approximately around 9 o'clock, I'd received a phone call from Sam stating that car doctor was on fire and asked if we could do anything. And then not too long after, I received a phone call from Justin stating that he was going to car doctor to put out the fires. When they arrived, Justin and his son, Austin, who was a previous employer for CarSource as well, when they arrived, we called Sam, and Sam had said that the body shop door, garage door, was unlocked, and to gain entry so that we could access the power washers and the buckets with inside CarSource so that we could put out the fires.
So was Sam, he wasn't down there with you, is that fair?
No, he was not.
Okay. He just had given you guys information as to what he was hoping that you would do.
Correct.
And the information as to, well, I'll ask it to you this way. Was the car doctor building locked?
No, the front door was, but the back door was not. The body shop door.
And did you gain access then to the shop?
Correct. He gave us permission.
And what did you do upon gaining?
We turned on the lights inside the building so that we could locate the power washer and all the buckets. And we proceeded to unlock the front door and put out the fires. And we had numerous amounts of bystanders help us as well that were also helping us put out the fires.
Now, on the 24th, was there anybody there physically protecting the business?
No.
And when you got there, what was the condition? I'll ask you, were there fires going on at that point, or
yes.
not? And that was at the car doctor location?
Correct.
So were you able then to combat the fires, deal with those fires?
Correct.
Okay. At any point on the 24th, did you see anybody associated with Car Source or Car Doctor down there?
In the morning of the 24th, yes.
Morning of the 24th or the 25th?
Not at that night, no, I did not. The morning of the 25th, I did.
Okay.
Sorry.
So 24th, you're putting out the fires.
Correct.
You then go home at some point?
Correct.
What time do you think you left the Car Doctor?
1 a.m. Around 1 a.m. Anywhere between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.
Now, if I can ask you about the 25th. On the 25th, do you have any contact with anybody from Car Source?
Yes, I do.
And who is that?
Sam.
And how do you have contact with Sam?
He calls me in the morning of the 25th asking if I could provide assistance to watch over the building later in that night. He called me and Justin Hamilton.
So at that point, he's not asking you to, if I have this right, he's not asking you to put out fires, he's asking for help protecting the business? Is that what
Correct.
he said? And how do you respond to that?
I say yes. I can help him. I can watch over the building.
And have you at that point kind of formulated a plan on what you're going to do?
Yes.
And what's that plan?
I had called my other friends who also had previously worked there, and our plan was we were going to set up on the roof and stay there most of the night watching the building.
And when you say that you had talked to or were planning on talking to your friends, who were they?
Austin Hamilton, Colin Doherty, and Justin Hamilton.
And did you have contact with those people at some point on the 25th?
Correct.
I'll ask you this way. What time did you get the call from Sam?
Early in the morning, anywhere between 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Not 10 p.m., 10 a.m.
And what time do you think you had contact with or spoke to the Hamiltons, the people that you were talking about?
Around 11 a.m. They first called me, and then I called Colin, and that was so around 11 a.m.
So after 11 a.m., is it fair to say that you believe you have like a plan in your head and people to help you with that plan?
Correct.
After 11 a.m., is there anything else, or is there something that happens that puts you in contact with anybody else that ends up there that night?
Yes.
And who is that?
Dominic Black.
And can you tell the jury what that contact with Mr. Black was?
I had noticed Dominic Black around the afternoon, 3 or 4 p.m. He was downtown, and I needed somebody to give me a ride to go buy some body armor because I had not planned on being armed that night. And he said he would give me a ride, and Kyle was with him. They came to my house around 4 p.m., 3 or 4 p.m. in that afternoon, picked me up, and I do not remember exactly what transpired after that, but Kyle ended up lending me his body armor and dropping me off, and they asked where I was going.
Okay, I'm going to slow you down for a second.
Correct.
Okay. So you had said that you saw a Snapchat.
Correct.
I'm not familiar with Snapchat, but so it's like a video or something?
Yes, correct. I saw a Snapchat video of Dominic downtown,
And
Kenosha.
you then, from that Snapchat, reached back out to him?
Correct. I reached out to Dominic.
And you had mentioned that you were looking for or wanted some body armor, right?
Correct.
And that, you tell me what you wanted that for.
I had not planned on being armed, and I wanted a means of protecting myself. And body armor was the next best suit for it.
Now, you had said that you didn't plan on being armed. Was there a particular reason that you didn't plan on being armed?
We planned on being on the roof, and I see no reason that I was going to need to be armed.
Based on your location?
Correct. We were going to be on the roof. I did not foresee myself needing a firearm or having any confrontation with anyone needing to have a firearm.
And you had said that, if I have it right, that Kyle Rittenhouse then had offered you his body armor.
Correct.
So, did you accept that?
Yes, I did.
So, to your knowledge, and if you know, did Mr. Rittenhouse say anything that would lead you to believe that he had he had two sets of body armor or anything else?
No, he did not.
So, what time? So you go down to Car Source, right?
Correct.
And who do you go there with on the 25th?
Myself at first, and then I ended up meeting Kyle and Dominic there after I left my house about 15 minutes. I had arrived at Car Source, and they met me there within 10-15 minutes of being there.
And was that a planned kind of location meeting?
Yes.
Were you aware whether or not Mr. Rittenhouse and or Mr. Black had spoken to anybody from Car Source earlier that morning?
I was not aware.
So you, if I have this right, you're there about 4 o'clock.
I arrived there, I would say, 5 o'clock. We went to go get the body armor around 4 o'clock.
So and which Car Source do you arrive at?
59th Street location, Car Doctor.
And you said shortly thereafter, Mr. Rittenhouse and Mr. Black arrive?
Correct.
And what do you do? What happens then?
I meet with the owner of Car Source, Sam, and tell him what's going to be going on.
Okay, so at about 5-ish on
Yeah.
the 25th, you have contact with the person you know to be Sam.
Correct.
And that is at the 59th Street Car Doctor location?
Correct.
And when you get there and you see Sam, what does he do?
Gives me a hug and tells me thank you for coming.
He didn't tell you at any point to get off that property?
No, he did not.
He didn't tell you that you were trespassing or anything like that?
No, he did not.
Was there any conversation that you had with Sam relating to any type of payment, or were you doing this for free, or how was this going to happen?
When I had arrived at the location, he said he would throw me some money to split between the guys that were helping us.
And did he ever do that?
No, he did not.
So you hug Sam, you talk to him for a little bit. What does he do, if anything, in terms of helping you guys with buildings and things like that? Getting into buildings, anything like that?
He gives me a set of keys to the 59th Street location.
So that's the Car Doctor location?
Car Doctor, yes, correct.
Okay. So he hands you a set of keys so you can go in?
Correct. Well, he had actually, we talked briefly, and then he said he was actually heading home, and that his brother Sal would give us a ride over to the 63rd Street location because he was locking up, and that his brother Sal would give me the keys.
And did you end up meeting up with his brother Sal?
Correct. His brother was there.
And did his brother Sal then give you the keys?
Correct.
You had testified that there was that you had a plan to be on the roof of that building.
Correct.
How were you planning on getting up there?
A ladder.
And where was, if you know, well, how did you know that there was a ladder there?
I had previously worked there and knew there were ladders, and Sam had also showed me where the ladders were at the Car Doctor.
And when you say Sam showed you where the ladders were, do you mean on the 25th?
Yes, correct.
So you then make contact with Sal.
Correct.
And are there other people there to help you protect the car doctor?
Not at the moment. When we had arrived at the 63rd Street location, we'd stood around for about 10 minutes, and that's when another group of individuals in their cars had pulled up and asked if we needed any assistance that night.
And what did you say?
I said if they want to, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Did you know who they were before they got there?
No, I did not.
Do you know the names of any of those people today?
I know one of the names,
And who is that?
Ryan Belsch.
And to be fair, at the 59th Street car source, Dominic Black is armed, is that right?
Correct.
And Mr. Rittenhouse is armed as well?
Correct.
Mr. Balch?
Correct.
Okay. So, how long are you at the car doctor, before Sal leaves?
We were not at Car Doctor when these people arrived. He'd given us a ride from Car Doctor to the 63rd Street location, and that's where we met these people. And then
Okay, hold on. Sal gave who a ride?
me, Dominic, and Kyle. We were waiting for Justin, Colin, and Austin to get there.
And Sal, do you remember the car he gave you? Do you remember the make of car he gave you a ride in?
It was either a Mercedes or a BMW.
And you went from 63rd down to 59th?
No, 59th to 63rd.
Now, there has been, this jury has seen a photograph.
Correct.
Where was that photograph taken?
63rd.
Okay. That's 30. So, Mr. Smith, are you in that picture?
Yes, I am.
And which one of those people is you?
I'm the one wearing the red cross on the helmet. The white helmet.
Okay, so you're fourth from the right?
Correct.
Okay. And there's been testimony that the guy on the far left is Sal, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. After that photo is taken, does Sal ever tell you, I want you to leave here, I don't want you here, you're causing problems? Anything, does he say anything that
No.
would indicate he doesn't want your presence?
No. He was very grateful for our presence.
So what happens after Sal leaves? Can you tell me where everybody goes, if you know?
Yes. Actually, shortly after Sam had left, another group of Latino Americans had arrived in the parking lot with melee weapons, telling us that they could watch that location for us for that night. And after that, we'd walked down to 59th Street location to meet up with Austin, Justin, and Colin.
And when you get to the 59th Street location, who's with you?
Ryan Belsch, two of his friends. It was either two or three of his friends. Colin, Dominic, Kyle, Justin, and Austin.
And are there, for lack of a better term, kind of locations that people are going to kind of be at for the night?
Correct.
And what is your location going to be?
The roof.
And if you know, do you know what Kyle's location is going to be?
Did not state where he was going to be.
I'll ask it to you this way. Was he on the roof with you?
No.
At some point when you're on the roof, do the protesters, rioters, whatever, are they starting to move south down Sheridan Road?
That is correct.
And about what time is that?
They had previously done it before I went on the roof as well.
Okay.
Around, I would say, 8:30.
And at that point, are you on the roof?
I am not on the roof at that point, no.
Once they start moving south on Sheridan, do you take a position on the roof?
After they dissipate, within 10 minutes, I do take position on the roof, yes.
And while you're on the roof, does anything happen to you?
Yes, our group, we get chemical bombed from the protesters.
And when you say chemical bombed, can you just explain kind of what you believe that means?
I believe it was an ammonia and bleach bomb they made inside of a plastic bottle and threw it up on the roof.
Now, to be fair, you didn't see who did that, right?
No, I did not see who did that.
And anything else that was happening to you while you were on the roof other than the ammonium?
Bricks.
bomb?
They were throwing bricks at us.
And again, to be fair, you're not sure who that was.
No, I am not.
You might not have known that night, but there was a gentleman there by the name of Joseph Rosenbaum.
Correct.
That night, did you see him?
No, I did not. I was not paying attention.
So there was no contact between you and Mr. Rosenbaum?
No, there was not.
Did you see Mr. Rittenhouse that evening?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe what, if anything, you noticed that he was doing?
He was standing in the parking lot.
Okay. There's been testimony about him repeatedly yelling medic, medic, medic throughout the evening. Did you ever see him do anything as it relates to being a medic?
I do not know. I was not paying attention.
Okay. Do you have any medical training?
Some.
Okay. Is that in part the reason for the
Correct.
cross on the hat? And can you just briefly tell us a little bit about your medical training?
My brother, who was an infantryman in the Marine Corps, has taught me CLS, combat life-saving, which is... Yes, ma'am. My brother, who was in the infantry in the Marine Corps, had taught me CLS, combat life-saving, and taught me briefly on what to do with gunshot wounds, lacerations, and things like that.
Was there at any point that evening, sir, did you become armed?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
When the first crowd had pushed towards us, when the police had pushed the first crowd down Sheridan Road, Ryan Belch handed me off his pistol and said, just in case.
And did you feel at that point that it was necessary or not?
Yes and no.
Okay. I'll let you explain it.
Yes, because there was a massive amount of people. I would say anywhere between 150 to 250 people. No, because I didn't see any need to have any. I had non-lethal.
Was your location a factor in that at all?
Yes, it was. I was on the ground at that point.
Okay. Did you then move back up to the roof?
I had not moved up to the roof yet. That was when I had moved up to the roof. When the crowd had pushed towards us, the people that were going to be on the roof had, at that time, figured this is a good time to go on the roof because the crowd had dissipated and pushed themselves back towards the courthouse. And that's when we went on the roof.
And do you, when you're on the roof, there's been videos shown, do you see Kyle Rittenhouse at any point after you go back up on the roof?
On the roof, a couple times throughout the night, I see him walking around.
Okay, so you see him, if this is fair, has he left your location and is he moving from location to location?
Correct.
At some point that evening, then, do you hear what you believe to be gunshots?
That is correct.
Right, and when you hear those, where are you?
I am on the roof.
And so, to be fair, you don't see what had happened, is that right?
No, I do not.
And there's been testimony regarding two instances, one involving Mr. Rosenbaum, the other involving Mr. Huber and Mr. Grosskreutz. Do you see either one of those happenings?
No, I do not.
Is there a time, well, let me ask you this, when you hear the shooting, do you get off the roof?
I get off the roof because Dominic had received a phone call. At the time, I had not known we received a phone call from, and he had stated that we have to leave. It is getting hectic. And the prior events that just occurred, gunshots, we all concluded that that was a safe bet, that it was getting crazy, so everybody that was on the roof had now got off the roof.
So when you get off the roof, do you see Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yes, I do.
And where do you see him?
Inside the shop, sitting down.
And how does he look to you?
Sweating, pale.
Does he say anything?
He repeats, I just shot someone, over and over, and I believe at some point he did say he had to shoot someone.
What happens then?
I tell him to walk outside and turn himself in. That was a safe bet for him. And I told him to walk outside, and he had said I had to shoot someone. And at that point, I'd left the location because I was in fear that the protesters were going to come to that location.
Okay, one moment. Mr. Smith, I don't have any other questions for you. Thank you for your time.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Mr. Smith, you have actually 2 juvenile adjudications for violations of the law, correct?
I believe so, yes.
On April 30th, 2000...
No.
His answer was, I might. He didn't answer correctly.
I don't think we conducted the usual discussion prior, and we didn't. And I explicitly said 2, and I don't know what happened, but the matter is covered. Move on to something else.
So, Mr. Smith, you indicated that you met up with the defendant and Dominic Black and borrowed the defendant's body armor. Is that right?
That is correct.
Can you describe that for us, please? What
The
is
body
that?
armor?
Yes.
It's a plate carrier. It's a vest. Yeah, a vest.
So it's not like a suit vest.
No, it is not. It's like a armor vest that you would see somebody in the military wearing.
What is it made out of?
I do not know, but it does have body armor inside it, soft armor panels.
Do you know what it is designed to stop or
Bullets.
protect? What kind of bullets?
It was 3A, so 357. Anything up to 357.
A 357 is a caliber that's typically seen in handguns, correct?
That is correct.
This is not the type of body armor that would stop a rifle, correct?
That is correct.
You're familiar with the AR-15s that the defendant and Dominic Black had, correct?
That is correct.
Have you ever shot or used one of those?
In the past, yes, I have.
Those typically fire .223 or .556 caliber, is that right?
That is correct.
And that's the type of caliber that would go through your vest.
That is correct.
Where physically in the world did you go with the defendant to pick up that body armor on Tuesday, August 25th?
I do not recall where I went. I know I'm pretty sure we left to go to my bank to pull out money. I do not remember what transpires afterwards, but Kyle does end up giving me his body armor because we never went and got mine. I do not remember why or what transpired to why we did not go and get it, but Kyle does end up giving me his body armor.
If I understood your testimony correctly, Dominic Black and the defendant came to pick you up that day, is that right?
That is correct.
And I'm not going to ask you your address, but you live relatively within walking distance of this area, correct?
That is correct.
And they didn't pick you up to drive you to this area. They drove you someplace west or south of here, correct?
I do not remember.
When they came to pick you up, whose vehicle were they driving?
Dominic's.
Was the plate carrier body armor already in the vehicle?
Yes, it was.
From the defendant?
That is correct, the defendant's body armor.
And you said that you chose not to have a gun that night because you felt the body armor would be sufficient protection. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
What were you worried about?
The way the previous nights of what I'd seen, I was worried somebody was going to shoot me or anything. You know, I just wanted a means of protection.
What had you seen on the previous night that made you feel that while you were protecting a business here in Kenosha, someone was going to shoot you?
A lot of individuals armed with rifles and pistols, acting irate throughout the nights.
Did you see or hear of anyone who actually shot anyone on those prior nights?
No, I did not.
But it's fair to say that when you came downtown on Tuesday, August 25th, you were concerned about the potential of violence, correct?
That is correct.
You were particularly concerned that that violence would come from the people on the street, the protesters, demonstrators, whatever word you want to call them. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
You felt that they not only posed a danger to the physical property you were at, but you personally for guarding that property. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
When is the last time before August 25th, 2020 that you worked for Sal or Sam or any member of their family?
2019.
I want to make sure we're very precise about the properties that we're talking about. You've got a map there behind you, and I'm going to represent to you, Mr. Smith, that there is a location that is marked Car Source that is on the northeast corner of 59th Street and Sheridan Road. Do you see that labeled Car Source?
Yes, I do.
Would you agree with me that that location is properly called Car Source?
The dealership or the mechanic shop?
The one that's on the northeast corner. I have a laser pointer if that would help.
Yes, it would.
I'm talking about this location here.
Yes, that is labeled Car Source.
And is that the proper name of it?
Yes, sir.
There is another location that is on the southwest corner of that intersection. Do you see where I'm pointing?
Yes, I do.
It is labeled on that map Car Source. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. They use two different names.
What is the other name they use?
Car Doctor.
When we're talking, if it's helpful, if it's okay with you, can we refer to that as Car Doctor?
Yes.
Okay. And to be clear, that is the location, Car Doctor, where you spent almost the entire evening and mostly on the roof. Fair to say?
Correct.
There is a third location at the corner of 63rd and Sheridan that is also marked Car Source on that map. Is that accurate to call that Car Source?
Yes.
Okay. Is it correct to say that your plan personally that night was to guard the Car Doctor location?
That is correct.
You mentioned you had last worked for these folks about a year before this, fair to say?
Correct.
Had you ever worked at that Car Doctor location?
Correct.
Were you familiar with the things that had been inside the building when you last worked there?
Yes.
When you were there on Tuesday night, August 25th, did it appear that some of the property inside had already been moved out of there?
Some of it, yes, but
So-
not all of it.
A lot of the mechanics tools and diagnostic equipment, things like that?
Not a lot of it. There were still actual mechanic benches still in there, the actual roll-in benches. So those were still in there. I don't know if they were possessed any tools inside them, but there were, from my acknowledgement, tools still inside the building.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but when that location was being used to do mechanic work or detailing or whatever would be done, there would typically be cars that needed to be worked on that were parked in the lot. Is that right?
Correct.
On the night of August 25th, those cars had already been moved out of there. Fair to say?
Some of them.
And the 63rd Street location, the one farther south, that also normally would be a lot that would be full of cars to be sold. Fair to say?
That is correct.
And when you were there on Tuesday night, August 25th, those cars had all been moved out.
Not
correct?
all of them, no.
You indicated that on the night of August 24th, you were helping to put out fires. Is that right?
That is correct.
Was that at the Car Doctor location?
Yes, it was.
Where were the fires?
In the parking lot right next to it.
Were they cars that were on fire?
Yes, they were.
Not the building itself.
No.
And you said that on that particular night, none of the owners of the company were physically there helping to put out the fires. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
So they were relying on you and other folks to do their work for them.
Correct.
Similarly, the next day, when you spoke to Sam or Sal or both of them, the plan was you were going to guard the property or be there at the property, and those owners weren't going to be there anymore, right?
That is correct.
They were going to pay you a couple $100s. Is
That is
right?
correct.
And you never got any of that money.
No, I did not.
You indicated that your personal plan at the Car Doctor location was to spend the time up on the roof. Is that right?
That is right.
And you didn't feel you needed a gun up on the roof. Is that right?
That is correct. I did not.
How were you going to protect the building from the roof?
I had multiple other friends there with rifles.
So they were the ones
Correct.
who were going to be protecting it with their rifles.
Correct. I was providing overwatch.
What does that mean?
I was watching the building. I was watching the building from the roof, making sure that nobody went inside or damaged the property on the building. The cars were burnt, so we didn't care about the cars.
So whatever cars were left on that lot were a lost cause.
All of them.
You were worried about the structure.
Correct.
That entire night, there was no damage to that
That is
structure.
correct.
No fire, correct?
Correct.
No stolen machinery or equipment, correct?
Correct.
You said that you didn't see any reason why you would need to confront anyone with a gun that night. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that because you didn't feel that using a gun to protect a building was appropriate?
Yes and no. It was appropriate in the needs when the situation would arise, but at the moment, throughout the nights that I had previously seen, was not required.
What sort of situation would arise with regard to that Car Doctor building where you would feel it would have been appropriate to use a gun?
It's irrelevant. In his judgment, what he would consider appropriate for him might be a different judgment than another person could lawfully reach.
Was there ever a time on the night of August 25th where you saw a situation with regard to the Car Doctor building that you felt it was necessary to use a gun?
No.
You were shown a photograph that was taken of you earlier in that evening. Were you wearing the body armor in that picture?
Yes, I was.
Can we put that picture up back again, please? That's exhibit number 30. So, Mr. Smith, you are the individual wearing the white hat with the red cross on it, is that right?
That is correct.
What does that hat mean? Oh, sorry. Where's the... Oh, okay, good, thank you. Okay, cool. So you have this white hat with the red cross on. What does that mean?
First aid.
Was that your way of letting everyone know that you were there to treat people that had a medical situation?
Yes.
Did you ever treat anyone?
No, I did not.
So help me understand. Why wear a hat telling people that you're there to help when you're up on the roof and can't?
Providing aid for my guys up on the roof.
So your intent was to let the 3 or 4 other people that were going to join you on the roof know that if they needed help, you were there for them.
Correct.
Did you have medical supplies with you?
Yes, I did.
What kind of medical supplies did you have?
I had what's called an IFAC, an individual first aid kit, which has chest seals, clotting powder, tourniquet, and that's about it. A couple other medical supplies, gauze.
Did you ever have to use any of that?
No, I did not.
So it's fair to say that despite the chemical bomb, the bricks, and whatever else was going on at the car doctor location, no one in your group got injured.
No.
Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say yes.
You indicated that once you got up on the roof, you really weren't aware of where the defendant went the rest of the evening. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say yes.
You were asked earlier about Joseph Rosenbaum, and I just want to be clear. As you sit here today, a year after all this happened, you know who Joseph Rosenbaum is.
I do know, yes.
At the time, that night, had you ever heard that name before?
No, I did not.
And looking back, do you remember encountering him at all that night?
Not at all, no.
I'm going to ask you the same questions about Anthony Huber. You know who he is as you sit here today.
I do know, yes.
On that particular evening, did you have any idea who he was?
Nope.
Did you ever see him as far as you remember?
No, I did not.
Same thing with Gage Grosskreutz. You know who he is today.
Yes, I do today.
On that evening, had any idea who he was?
Nope.
Ever remember seeing it?
Nope.
So these rocks or chemical bombs or bricks or whatever was being thrown at you on the roof, you are not here telling us Joseph Rosenbaum was doing that, right?
Correct. I could not see who was throwing them.
You, and maybe I misheard you. I thought I heard you say at one point that you had non-lethal?
Yes, that is correct.
What do you mean by that?
Pepper spray and a pepper gun.
What is a pepper gun?
It shoots pepper spray out of it.
I just want to make sure I understand. You listed pepper spray and pepper gun. Are those two different things?
I believe at the time that I had what they, it had pepper balls in it. I don't think it was actually like pepper gel. It was a pepper ball gun.
And that's something that you carried that evening because you could use that to defend yourself if there was a need.
Correct. Deter, not defend. Deter somebody. If the situation arised, I could deter whoever was coming at me.
Okay. Do you mean deter, like scare them off or ward them away?
Correct.
Did you ever have to use that?
No, I did not.
You indicated that after you heard the shootings, the defendant came back, you described what he looked like, and you said he just shot someone and that he had to, correct?
Correct.
Did he ever say who he shot?
No, he did not.
Did he ever say how many people he shot?
I do not remember.
Did he ever say anything about the condition, like whether those people were armed?
He did not say anything about them being armed.
Did he ever say that they threatened him?
I do not remember.
Did he ever say he feared for his life?
Do not remember.
Did he ever say anything about any weapons that he saw on any of the people that he shot?
No, I do not remember.
And he didn't tell you how many people he shot either?
No.
I was a little confused by the end of your testimony because in one statement you said you told him to go outside and turn himself in, correct?
Correct.
But in another statement you said you left because you were fearful the protesters were coming to that location.
I left after I told him that.
Okay. So help me understand, if the protesters are coming, you assume these protesters were coming to harm you or the defendant or members of your group, right?
Correct.
So putting the defendant outside was going to put him in danger, right?
Yes, it would have, yes. If the protesters were coming, yes.
Did you know whether they were coming?
I did not know whether they were coming or not.
From the roof, you could see the line of police cars along 60th at Sheridan, correct?
Correct.
So you knew the police were there.
Correct.
In fact, by that time of the evening, the police had pushed all the protesters south of 60th, right?
Correct.
There were no more protesters around that car doctor location, correct?
Correct.
As far as you could tell, there was no more danger to that building, fair?
Correct.
Why were you still there?
To just watch over the building the rest of the night. I mean, the prior nights, a lot of the stuff had died down, or so we had thought. There was fires around 8 o'clock the prior nights, and then later in the night, around 2 a.m. on the first night, is when Car Source got lit on fire at 2 a.m.
So you were planning on staying all night
Correct.
up on the roof.
Correct.
But after the defendant comes back, you leave.
Correct.
Why?
I was in fear that the protesters or the crowd would retaliate or any means, and I, at that point, had deemed that building a lost cause.
If you didn't know how many people the defendant had shot, and you didn't know who they were, why did you assume it was the protesters that were going to be upset with the defendant at that moment?
I do not know.
You told someone else in your group, Joanne Fiedler, that the police were coming to the building, didn't you?
I do not remember.
So you never came back to that location and told Ms. Fiedler that the police were coming to the building, is that correct?
I do not remember. I mean, it's been over a year, so I do not remember.
Obviously, if you think the defendant should have turned himself into the police at that moment and the police were coming to that building, you would have wanted him to stay there, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
Redirect.
I just have a couple questions for you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Binger had asked you if there was ever a time that night at the car doctor that you felt it was appropriate or necessary that firearms would be used. Do you remember that?
Yes.
At any point on the 25th, were you ever at the car doctor? Were you ever attacked?
I was not.
Did anybody ever threaten to kill you at that location?
I do not recall, no.
Did anybody threaten to kill you to your face, meaning
No.
they walked up to you and said, "I'm going to kill you"?
No.
Did anybody chase after you that evening?
No.
I have nothing else.
Any question?
No.
You may step down, sir.